I started out as a little kid, 14 years old, outside of this building selling Nick tickets. My father was killed by, my stepmother, and I can never understood like why nobody black owned clubs. Everybody looked at Puff and what they aspired to be. Just keep selling it. Like if you know the formula is there. Like how come no one's doing it?
Tarence, camera B, take one, mark.
You know how that
BX.
could be. The BX is in the house. So
Okay.
paint me the picture. Tell me what the household looked like. Take it all the way back. How was the household for you, Mr. Brown?
Oh man, I grew up in the South Bronx, Melrose Projects to be exact, 156 in Cortland.
Okay.
50,000 families. Everybody's fighting for that free cheese. Everybody's fighting for that spice ham. You know, the first of the month, the 16th to 15th grind.
Yes, sir. I'm from 169th in Webster. So
Oh, okay. My grandmother grew up over there, 1270 Webster Avenue.
yeah, my grandma 1368. So we not too
Okay.
far from each other.
Yeah,
Over to
I
MS
had I
219
had
in
other family
Wash.
at 1430 Webster.
Okay.
So
Near the stairs.
the Brown, yes, the Browns was on Webster.
So I
Okay.
know a lot of what I know about your story, I think a lot of our story is very similar,
Okay.
Mother addicted to drugs, like just
Okay.
navigating that type of household, your father with the numbers, being a runner, so I think there's a lot of similarities in the early childhoods. Just as much detail as possible, talk to me what it's like growing up in that type of environment, that type of household, and how it shaped you.
I mean, at the time, I guess I was considered to be ghetto rich because my mother had a job. She was a single mother raising, three kids at the time. And, she eventually had my last brother when she was, when I was maybe, I want to say 8 or 9. And, we was, considered ghetto rich. My mother had a job at Lehman College. And, we was doing well until, until crack hit the BX. Then life changed drastically. It was one of those crazy things that just came through my neighborhood, and you know we was baby kids for real after that
Yeah,
in real life.
yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your father. What was your relationship like?
So my father was like, as a kid, my father was like to me a hero, and he was where before growing up in Melrose, we grew up in a street called Union Avenue. It's another street in the South Bronx where it was like, my father was the neighborhood number man, and he had like a Cadillac. He had like, he had his way. If you grew up in the ghetto, in any ghetto in America, there were several people who made money, and the number man was one of those people. And so he was, somebody who did well for himself. And as a kid growing up, I was amazed by how everybody looked up to him, and I was really proud to say that was my dad.
Yeah, and rest in peace to him, because I read the bio, I did my homework, and I heard, unfortunately, about, him being murdered by your stepmother. If you don't
Yes.
mind, like, talk to the audience about, what happened, how did that affect you, especially with all the amazing things you had to say about your father and the man he was. How did that affect you as a young age when you're already carrying so much growing up in the Bronx?
All right. So my father actually died when I was like 15 or 16 years old. It was weird because at the time I was living in Worcester, Massachusetts with my godmother because I basically had to get to New York because my mom kicked me out and I was kind of homeless. So I had to go stay with my godmother in Boston. And so I called my cousin one like Monday afternoon, and he basically told me that my father had gotten killed yesterday. And I asked him what happened. And he basically told me the story. So I called my brothers, my older brothers. They told me that basically my father was killed by, my stepmother, and his funeral was on Friday, so I needed to get back home. So it was really weird. I remember vividly walking into the church because I took the first bus out of Boston. It was like, it left at like 5 a.m., I believe, and it got to New York at like 9, and my father's funeral was at 10. So when I got there, the funeral was already started. And so when I walked into the church, it was like it was already had started. And I sat in the back, and then they realized I was there, and they picked me in the front row. And it was just like I was shocked. It was like something out of a movie. Like it was surreal to me. And I heard the story about what happened, and I was like, as a kid, I didn't understand why, but as an adult, you know, as I got older, I understood why she did what she did. And for the longest time, I was never able to forgive her. But, I know that as an adult, that temporary insanity is a real thing. That you really can hear something that it shifts your world in the mind, in your mind in a way that you can't even, you know, comprehend what you may do if you put in a situation like that.
Yeah. Are you willing to say what that story is? And if not, we can move on.
I mean, I'm okay. More or less, my father had fallen in love with my brother's uh, baby's mother. And in order to get back at my brother, she started a relationship with my father. And more or less, my mother-in-law found out about the relationship, and she shot my father in the head and killed him.
So sorry to hear that, man. Um, it's like you're going through a tough moment already, right? I think about the idea of living with an addict, watching them sell things of value, watching them spiral out of control at times, and to have to leave your home early and hear that about your hero. We just want to sympathize with you and, you know, tell you that sorry that happened. And thank you for sharing with the audience. One of the things I read about you during this time frame is that you love going to school for lunch. And I know when people probably hear like Big Fish, they probably assume like you was doing something crazy. But talk about your nickname and just talk about how you got your nickname, Big Fish.
I mean, growing up in the South Bronx with about 10, I don't want to say 10, but I want to say about another 1,000 kids who all, we were all like baby as kids. All of our parents have basically disappeared, and we all kind of like trauma bond. As an adult, I found out what that word meant. But at the time, it was we kind of survived off of breakfast in school, um, lunch at school, and basically snacks at community centers because until I found my hustles, that was the only way we ate. So we ate more or less at school, and I tend to love these patties in the free lunch system. They were called bluefish patties, and whenever those they have those patties in whatever school, I would drive. I would not drive, but I would walk, 20 blocks to a different school because all the public schools gave during the summer gave free lunch to all the kids because they realized that hey, these kids need food year round. So it wasn't like when school was over, the services stopped. It
Yep.
was like if you grew up in the Bronx, you knew there was community centers that fed the kids lunch. There was the Boys and Girls Club who gave kids lunch. There was but the public school had the best food because it was like ices involved. There was all these snacks and
Yeah.
like you had to be there. Like at the time, it's like you know I'm 55 now, and it's like I go to family functions, and sometimes somebody will bring a dish or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, that reminds me of those free peanut butter and jelly bars from free lunch," and we would laugh about it because it was like only us poor kids knew what something that related to that, and so to me it was a blue patty. But to this day, one of my favorite dishes is a fillet of fish from McDonald's because it reminds me of that patty.
Okay. And that's why your nickname Big Fish come.
Yeah.
It's so funny. The reason why I asked you that, right? Like I wanted to make sense to the audience, right? I asked you that is because like that name comes out of survival. But
Yes.
it's a name that a bunch of people in hip hop know. And it's
Yes.
like when you think about hip hop and the storytelling, how black people constantly overcome and how we at least used to express ourselves in music, with community involved, with real things that we going through in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens involved. To know like that's your origin story of your name and how it relates to hip hop and the symmetry is just a beautiful thing. So I just wanted to talk about that. And now I want to segue into like you hustling, right? Like in order to do what you do and accomplish a lot of things you accomplish, which we're going to get into throughout the interview, is you got to be a hustler. You got to
Yes.
grind. You got to know how what it is to take no. You got to know how it is to feel rejection. And I don't want to start with the big moments. I want to start back to a kid of, you being at the grocery store begging for tips, and what was going through your mind during those days, like when you're hustling and just trying to find a way. Did you know you was building skills, or it was just like this is survival? It is what it is.
So, I want to start by saying like I started out by going into supermarkets and eating food inside the supermarket, or just opening up, walking around a supermarket, opening up a pack of meat and just eating it, right? So a manager just came up to me one day and was like, "Hey, the next time you come in here, you're gonna go to jail because we're gonna call the police." And he was like, "You need to go and bag groceries or do something." And then I was like, "Well, how does a bagging the groceries work?" So he took me to the front of the supermarket and he put me at the register and he gave me a little cup and I put that cup in the bottom of the register and I started to pack bags. The first day I made, I want to say $5 and I was hooked. Because to me, $5 meant that not only did I have enough food, I had enough food to feed me and my brothers and sisters for the day. So that kind of changed everything for me because at that point I learned customer service. I learned to pretend that a minimal task as if it was a hard task to get a bigger tip. So like if they gave me like, if they had groceries and they had a lot of milk or rice or something, I would make these noise like it was just like it was killing me to move it for them. But to them, they was like, oh, this guy's working hard, so let me give him an extra 50 cents or something like that. And I was really good at it. And then it started out with me being good at what I was doing and then turning other kids in the neighborhood onto it. So I would like go to an average supermarket and there would be 3 registers and I would take 2 kids with me and I would pay them like $5 for the day and I would take all their tips. So I learned business management, in the fourth, fifth grade, because I just was always looking at, I looked at like, guys who were drug dealers and other hustlers in the neighborhood. They learned that they had multiple people working for them. So in my mind, I'm like, man, if I can make $10 on a Saturday and I can make $5 from each of these registers on top of mine that I'm already making, I'm a be able to buy the new Pro-Keds on Friday. I'm gonna be able to buy the new Converse, the new, I can go to Dr. J's. I can go to get this, get that. And because it was, at that time, hip hop was a big deal. And to be socially accepted, you had to have the fresh kicks. You had to have the devil jeans. You had to have the Sergio Valente shirt. You had to have the Kingo hat. You had to have the name buckle. And all those things cost money. So I was fortunate enough to find bagging groceries in order to not have to sell drugs, which everybody else did. But I hated drugs, and nobody knew the reason why I hated drugs is because my mother was a full-blown addict, and I despised it. So I never, to this day, I never smoked weed, never got high, because I had this long like hatred for it.
Makes a lot of sense. I remember reading about your uncle giving you 2 Yankee tickets and you
Yes,
flipping it basically.
yes.
And I want you to tell that story, but I also want, that catapulted to you probably being one of the biggest ticket scalpers in America, which is like crazy in a skill. One, tell people what a ticket scalper is if they don't know. And then two, talk about how like that moment and your uncle give you those tickets and how you doubled it and how that motivated you to eventually get to Michael Jackson, all the other stuff we're gonna talk about.
So it started out with just me just getting 2 tickets, right?
Yeah.
That normal kid, somebody in the family gives you 2 tickets, you go to the game. As we're walking to the game, I encounter an older scalper. And he says, y'all going to the game? We was like, yeah. He said, y'all got tickets already? He goes, yeah. He looked at the tickets we had. So we ended up having these, I guess they were called field box tickets, which is like the best seats. So he ended up, giving us like $100 for them. Like for a kid, in the fifth, sixth grade, $100 is like equivalent to having $500 today, right? So I'm now completely trying to figure this new hustle out. Like, well, how much did he sell the tickets for? Because that's where my brain worked. If he's buying them for me and he's reselling them, how much is he selling them for? So I'm hanging around the Skyvers. I would come to all the games and just watch. And then I watched, and then I said, okay, I got it now. So I was like, okay, I'm young enough to get free tickets. these guys are buying them. So I'm going to bring a bunch of my neighborhood kids. We're going to stand at the gates and ask these white people for free tickets. So we stood outside the gate, and it started out with me just asking for free tickets with my friends, getting the tickets and selling them to all the scalpers. So, and we would also get to the point that we would ask people to buy us a ticket to the game, and then we would sell the tickets. So that's how that was my introduction into the ticket scalping world, which turned into a nightmare.
Yo, it's so funny. Like when I read your story, I'm like, you take something and turn it into something bigger. It's like, nah, I'm going to figure out the hustle. I'm going to figure out how you're moving here. I'm going to figure out how you're taking it all the way to another level. So at 17 years old, you start following the Michael Jackson tour across
Yes,
America, ticket
yes,
scalping.
yes,
And eventually, I know it sounds crazy, but it leads you to meeting the Al Heyman, right?
yes.
Talk to us about that journey at 17 years old, following the Michael Jackson tour, and then eventually meeting one of the biggest promoters ever.
So Michael Jackson was sold out in every city you go to, but during the day, that's when all the real action happened, right? So what happens is during the day, production does a walkthrough of a venue, and then the day of in the morning, they put the tickets on sale that they thought they weren't going to be able to sell. So all the ticket scalpers knew just you got to get up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, go out there and get the tickets. So one of the tours, I believe maybe it was in North Carolina somewhere, I found out that the people who did the production got tickets and they had no friends in those cities. And I basically went in and I figured out to get in. I got one production guy who basically led me to everyone in the production for the whole tour that eventually led me to Al Heyman. So basically we're in Honolulu, the tickets are going for like $100 each. Like this is like it was a really, really big deal. I'm walking around the stadium in the inside and he's asking me what am I doing? So I'm thinking that he's like, the boss of the whole thing. So I'm afraid. He really was the boss, but I didn't know that he was a hustler too. So he was like, what are you doing back here? I was like, oh, I'm waiting for my uncle to come, this and that, da, da, da. He goes, I know what you're doing. He says, how much money you got? So I made up this whole huge story, how I flew people in from LA and the tickets weren't there and this and that. So he says, how many tickets do you want to buy? And I was like, 100. And so he goes, you don't got the money for the 100 tickets. So I pull out, I guess, $5,000. I buy the tickets from him. I go outside and I'm like thinking to myself, like, who is this guy? Like, what is it that he do that I'm able to buy 2 tickets from the stage hands and 1 ticket from this guy, but he's able to sell me 100 tickets at one time. So the next day, because I can't even sleep at night because I'm possessed. I'm a man possessed. And I was like, I got to get back to the stadium and get back to that guy. So I get back there, and now I'm asking for 200 tickets. So I finally tell him what I'm doing. I was like, listen, I'm out here hustling. I ain't got no huge group. I'm out here selling tickets. So he's laughing. And I was like, what do you do? He's like, this is my show. And I was like, it's your show. And because in my mind, I'm believing because all the stage hands, the people working are all white people. So I'm thinking there's some big white guy, that's behind this whole thing. And he goes, no, this is, I'm with Michael Jackson Productions. And then I realized the people who were closest to Michael were a lot of African Americans. So then I'm like, oh, okay. So I get to meet him. I'm talking to him. He sells me the tickets. I sell them. But now I'm obsessed now because I'm like, okay, this guy has blew my world. Because now I'm like, I don't just have to be the person selling tickets. I could someday produce a show if I had the money. So I'm like, okay, this kind of production would probably cost $100 million. I can never, ever, ever do it. Like, but in my back of my mind, I was like, I go to, because at the time I'm going to these hip hop parties and I'm like, I'm always noticing that I go to Skate Key, I go to all these places and I was always a numbers guy. So I'd be like, there's 1,000 people in here. Somebody made 15,000. Somebody, because I would automatically just size the room up and I would just know the number. And then I'm talking to him all the time. I go to the Super Bowl, you know, because I met him, I'm now doing the same thing I learned from him to NFL players. So now I found that all the NFL players get 10 tickets each, but these are all poor black dudes who can't afford to fly their family in. So I would go in and buy when the team would win, I would just go to wherever that town was and show up at their practice with money and buy everybody's tickets. So Now I'm in a big event game now because I was like I'm no longer focusing on concerts and stuff like that. I'm focusing on Super Bowl, All Star Weekend, World Series, and and then the biggest one of them all was boxing. So Al Hammond was like, hey, um, you ever heard of Don King? And I was, if you're black and you've seen a boxing match, you know who Don King is, but you don't realize what it is he does. Like it's in everybody's world, it's like, oh, he's just the guy who's talking about the fight, not knowing that he's the guy who found the venue, who contracted the boxers, who put the whole thing together, who got the sponsors. There was a whole big intricate thing that he did, other than just look crazy on television. So I meet with Don King Productions, and basically I'm trying to buy the tickets for the fight because the fight is where all the black hustlers come to. So the black hustlers never buy tickets. They all show the pimps. They don't buy tickets. They all show up last minute and with all this cash, right? So I'm trying to buy the tickets from Don, and he basically wants 3 times the amount because he's a bigger hustler. Where Al Hammond sold them to me at face value, he wants to make a profit off the tickets. So basically, I kept saying no until almost fight time, and I waited them out because I knew nobody bought the tickets 3 days in advance. I knew that they would just walk up to the casino and be like, I need 20 tickets. And, the person who had the tickets would just benefit from that. So I waited them out and ended up buying like, 100 tickets from them. And later on that day, I'm sitting in the casino. I see him walking by. So he was like, "Oh, did my girl take care of you?" And I was like, "Yeah, she took care of me. But we got to find a way for me to get the tickets earlier because, you know, she made me wait all the way to almost fight time, and we almost, everything got messed up. So we're talking, and then Donald Trump walks up to him and he walks away. But I ended up having a long-term relationship with Don King, and pretty much every fight, Mike Tyson fight, Lennox Lewis fight, I basically got tickets from them. Then I also dealt with De La Hoya and his productions team, and Chavez with the Mexican fighters, and so on and so forth.
So you doing all of this as a teenager? There's estimates. I
18,
don't know.
19,
I ain't
18,
clocking your
19, 20.
pockets,
18,
but
19, 20.
there's people saying you were 100. I don't know. Tax people, IRS. They say you were a millionaire by then. You were out of high school. People thinking about prom. You at the Mike Tyson fight.
Yes.
Tell me what is
I
that?
wasn't a millionaire, but I was 100,000aire.
Hey, listen, I'm just saying what the report said. I don't know, man. Listen.
No, we called it at the time thousandaires.
But what was that process like, man? At 19, right? You drop out, you taking care of your family, you got the world in your hands. You're like a socialite, right? Like you're high in society. You can get people into the biggest events there are. As a kid who also is trying to experience this and live this life and feel good about what's going on in your era. How do you process that? Like what's going through your mind? Like, are you getting big headed? Are you like thinking about your next plan? Are you thinking about your next hustle?
The problem is at a young age, I saw Beverly Hills. I saw Bel Air. I saw Lakeshore Drive. I saw Park City, Utah. I saw these places that I saw a level of wealth that I couldn't even explain to people if I tried. So I knew there was a whole nother level of money that was out there. So where I came from, the time that I was growing up, it was about trying to be as cool as the rappers. But I had more money than the rappers. I had just as much money as the drug dealers, and I kind of lived like a drug dealer, but I was a ticket scalper. And no one kind of knew what I was doing because the average ticket scalper, they had, maybe $10,000 saved. But my hustle was different because I was always looking for that competitive edge that no one else can get. So I was going after trying to figure out who's producing the event, who was the promoter, who was this, who was that. So that was kind of the way I thought about things.
Let's talk about hip hop. How you fell in love with hip hop. I think I read that the first record you ever bought was Rapper's Delight, a song that came out in 1979. Talk about how you got into the hip hop world. How did you even start? What does that mean? You bought the record. Like, break that down to the audience, and like, when did you transfer to the hip hop business?
So I think the first record I fell in love with was Rappers Delight. Okay. But the first record I actually physically bought, I remember it clearly, was Curtis Blow, Daydreaming. It was kind of cool because it was hip hop, but it was R&B, and it it was before its time. It's like now, later in the 90s, you saw Mary J. Blige and all those people that kind of did the hip hop with the R&B thing. But Curtis Blow was the first person who kind of, did melody that sound cool. Because back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, every rapper kind of sung, but it was just kind of whack. It just didn't sound good. It was like they were trying to figure it out. But Curtis Blow had like he like maybe had vocal training or something. But to me, that was my first record, and so that's why that was a record that my mother would let me play, because when we played the other hip hop records, she was like, "Cut that noise off." But the Curtis Blow record, she would let us play over and over and over again. And the weird part about being a poor kid from the project is like most people had 3 records, maybe 4 tops, and you played those records over and over and over and over again. Because this is before internet. This is before there was radio shows. This was before all of that. This was like when you basically only got hip hop when you went to the jam, or if you had a record.
Hip hop was literally born, I want to say, in our backyard, but
Yes.
more importantly, in your time. Like I
Yes.
can't experience that. I don't know what it was
Okay.
like. Like, what did that mean? Did you feel like you had some type of pride being from the Bronx, like, and you had the resources that most people couldn't even dream of at that time in the area? Like, what was that like? Like, do you feel like, hey, this is motivating me? Like, this is something I have to do. This is personal. This is for the Bronx, or was just like a love for music?
So when at the time I didn't know what was happening to me, right? But I remember we would always watch Soul Train, right? And we hated Soul Train unless it was somebody like Michael Jackson on it. But there was all these groups like the OJs and this and that, and my mother would like sing these songs and this and that. And so I realized like no matter how old you are, there is a type of sonic sound of music that's for the youth culture. And so for my mother, it was the Motown sound. So in my household, it was all Smokey Robinson music. It was this, it was that. And then when she got a little bit older, then it was disco. But for us, it was like once disco was dying down, then it became hip hop. And for my era, it was hip hop because you couldn't avoid it. If you was, anywhere between the ages of 10 years old and 20, you were completely engulfed in it because you couldn't. It was if you wanted to be socially accepted in school, in the neighborhood, like it was everywhere. It was the voice of the youth of my time. So if you grew up if you were born between 71 and 80, and you lived in the South Bronx, you had a different, unique experience than anywhere else in the world because this is where it started at. This is where one guy had a speaker, one guy had a half a headphone, one guy had 4 records, one guy had an amp, one guy knew how to get the electricity. So it wasn't like a well-oiled machine that you see now. It was like people pitting things together like a cake in order to just make a party. And that's kind of like how a jam was. It was like, you stood around till somebody goes, man, we need one more extension cord. And one guy was like, yeah, I gonna get one. And it all came together. And it was like, it was really like this raw thing. Like you can't even, unless you was there, you would never be able to understand it. Like, like being that I was there, it's like I can talk to certain people like Fat Joe who grew up in my hood, and he knows what I like. When we see each other, we just laugh because it was like when people try to say things, and when Joe tells all these stories, and I look at people and they look at him like he's lying. Like, no, he's really not lying. Like he was there in the middle of the heart of the South Bronx, a Spanish kid trying to rap with the best rappers in the world. Because in those days, the rapper and the DJ was black, but the best dancers were the Latins. We could not do the things that they could do dances wise, but he just wanted to be a rapper. And so I would always see him, and I kind of always hung around a lot of Puerto Rican dudes. And so it was kind of weird, but
One of your most underrated accomplishments to me is the fact that you were able to throw peaceful parties when there was a lot of stigma. A lot of clubs did not want people hosting parties or hip hop events because of how they depicted the people creating the music. And I think that's still a thing, obviously, with rap culture. But like, how were you able to throw these parties, these massive parties, with so much energy, so much ego, and everybody knew, hey, this is a big fish event. Everybody going home in one piece. Like, what was your gift with that?
So in the beginning, it wasn't that way. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. It was a bunch of trial. It was a
Shout
bunch
out
of
to your
trial.
PRs.
It was a bunch of trial and error. So it was basically I was rogue, and I wanted to do the best because I'm from the street, so I knew that people wanted to see G's, that people wanted to see these hardcore hip hop acts, and most clubs didn't want to do it with black people, unfortunately. But I was lucky enough to find a person who grew up in the Bronx, who was Puerto Rican. Her name was Alette, and she shared my vision. So I said to myself, we could still do this hip hop party, but we can make it 70% Latin and 30% black. Because I knew from growing up in the Bronx that Latin people were just as engulfed in hip hop as black people. So she was like, how would we be able to do that? I was like, well, we'll do a hip hop artist, but with a Spanish DJ or a Spanish artist attached to it. Whereas we're basically letting the customer know that, hey, this is a Latin style event. And we would throw Latin words on the flyers and certain little things, lingo, like Boricua and this or that, or just certain things. This is before the Dominican, invasion, but this one it was just pure Puerto Ricans and blacks going to hip hop parties. So it started out with doing that, and then the reggaeton era came, and basically there was way more violent than hip hop. So I happened to get lucky and get a position at the Copacabana doing my events there. And lo and behold, I learned that the Copacabana was the biggest long lasting club owners from the Latin and the hip hop world. So if anybody knows them, they also owned a club in the back in the days called Bentley's, which was the adult black club in New York City for years. And they also owned Shadow, and they also own Copa. So of course, I'm picking her brain because I want to know, how do you own because, I mean, a lifespan of a promoter at a party in New York at the time is 2.6 parties. Like it's you after your first two parties, you're just waiting for somebody to get shot and stabbed. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. It's just a thing that's going to happen. But with the adult parties, they last forever. So I was like, so how does this work? So she was like, yeah, we play 70% R&B and 30% hip hop, but we only do 3 songs at a time. And so then I learned at the time that they're controlling people's emotion through the music. So whereas my DJs, which is at the time Flex and Mr. C and this and that, we're coming in, we're guns blazing, we got the top 50 records lined up, we're going in for the kill. Whereas if you went to Bentley's, they played disco, they played house music, they played a little bit of everything, Caribbean, and then 1 or 2 or 3 rap records, but then right back to the Caribbean. So it was like an emotional roller coaster. But it was carefully curated to control the people's emotion because she knew that once they got liquored up and certain songs just created a toxic atmosphere. So she basically taught me how to train your DJs to watch the audience and not be so caught up in their set. And then if they see something getting too crazy, automatically throw a slow jam on. And then that was just automatically, you gotta be the toughest guy in the world to want to fight doing a George Benson record. Like it's just, like if you can fight when the OJs come on, then you're tough. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, but it worked. So I took that knowledge, and I kept it. And when it was time for me to reinvent myself, because this game is just all about reinventing yourself, I took that knowledge and I created my version of it.
Oh man, that's amazing. Take me back to the early 2000s, one of the first big major promotional events for Big Fish, Team Party with Jay-Z. What was it like with Jay-Z being in the room? Take me through that night.
So like I said, back in the day, I was a thousandaire.
Yeah.
And so I would see Jay-Z and Dame Dash and other rappers at the club all the time. And it was all about who could come to the club and buy all the Cristal first, right? So I would always see them in the club, and they always played with credit cards. So I thought they were credit card scammers, right? And so this is before Jay's album came out. So Jay's album came out, they became extremely successful, but Dame was the businessman. He was the one that was more personable, and he would come and talk to anybody, and he was good with identifying who in the room had money, and it was weird because all the guys in New York who had money all went to the same things. They went to NBA All Star Weekend. They went to the fights. They went to How Can I Be Down. They went to it was a circuit of things that people went to who basically had money from New York, and so me and him became friends. And when Jay-Z was album came out, it was successful, but it wasn't like he wasn't a really big deal. But it was a good enough deal where people kind of knew his name. So when I met Lillette, we were like, what should we do for our first event? She's like, do you know any rappers? I was like, I know a few rappers, but I'm cool with Dame and Jay-Z. She was like, you know Jay-Z? I was like, yeah. I was like, let's do Jay-Z in a Spanish band. I was like, okay. So I meet Dame, I give Dame the first half. We book Dame, and Fat Joe is my lifelong friend as a kid, and he's pissed. He's like, how are you doing a Latin hip hop party and you don't have me and Pun on it? So this is right before Pun's record, Boricua Morena, came out. It was probably a month away. So him and Dame and Jay-Z them had some beef that I had no prior knowledge of. So um, they came for sound check, Jay-Z and Dame and those guys, and I gave them the second half of the money because that's when you usually give the money for the artists. And Pun and Joe and all those guys were there. And this is now the line's down the block. Like if you know Club Exit, the line, it's the street that the exit is on. It's probably 5 blocks long, but it's a long block. But the line is probably 1,500 kids deep. So they get into the biggest fight in the world. Before the club opens, I lose all my money. Um, Basically, me and Joe had a big falling out over that, and da da da. And he's like, you're making a big deal about this, but Pun just made this song, and it's going to be the biggest thing in the world, and I'm gonna give you a free show to make up for it. And I'm like, man, I just want my money back. Like, at the time, I didn't realize what Puerto Rican Day Parade was. I didn't realize what Big Pun, that new song was going to come out. At the time, I just wanted my money back. But he basically didn't want to give me money back, but he gave me the first Puerto Rican Day Parade because he knew that I had the young, I knew how to get to the youth, the young Puerto Ricans. So we went to 187. I make the deal with 107. I'm saying, hey, I have a float. I want you guys to be the official. I want to make the official 187 float, and it's not going to cost the station anything. But I want you to announce that Pun's going to be on this float. They says, great. They said, how much money you got? I said, zero. But I was like, but I have the float, because Joe had basically gave me the float, and so I parlayed the float, and 107 sold ads against it, and they had a bunch of sponsors on the float, and they gave us Angie Martinez for free. And at the time, Pun has the absolute biggest song in the world. Like it's just as big with black people, but it's extremely big for Latins because this is their version of Beat It. It's the big, like I can't explain how big it was in that for that Puerto Rican Day Parade, but Pun was the hottest thing else in the world, and we had the official Puerto Rican Day Parade party with him. So, make a long story short, I got my money back that day, and basically, the club owner was like, "Okay, we got to do more of this Latin hip hop nights." So we basically made a deal with Hot 97 again to basically do Hot 97 Friday Night Live from club. It was called Carbon at the time, and we did every Friday. We did a live act, a lot of acts got broke there, like Eminem, 50, a bunch. We did a bunch of people at that. On opening night, I remember was Noriega. It was like when what was a big deal, and but every week we had the top biggest acts because Hot 97. Everybody wanted to be on Hot 97. Hot 97 was the hardest station in the country to get on. So hardest station in the country for artists to get on. So they pretty much did our shows in order to get themselves live on the radio.
I gotta ask, man. Like everything you're saying, I hope everybody do their research because this is true. I know you promoted big with Don King, and there's a photo of you, Don King, and our President Donald Trump, Atlantic City. Talk about that night. What was that like? It's not a political question at all. But just talk about that night, just being in a environment, Atlantic City, with that type of people. Now the president, Don King, who, everybody knows what he means to boxing, whether you like him, whether you love him, and what
So
he meant for
it's a
Mike Tyson's
funny
career.
story about Donald Trump, right? Like every rapper in the '90s would say they want to be Trump rich, right? Because it was like, if you knew Trump, Trump was like now that I'm older, they could see the Epstein files, this and that. But at the time, he was known for being in, he was a womanizer. He was, he was a playboy. And I saw him in the fights. I saw him in the casino floor talking to girls. Like he was, like he was a black white dude. So for me, it's like when everybody's like, "Yo, Donald Trump's a racist," it's like I could never see that because I saw him in a social settings, and he was definitely not a racist in any way. I seen him hug Mike Tyson. I seen him jump on Lennox Lewis's back. I seen him because Atlantic City was right here to New York. So when the Taj Mahal opened and Trump Casino opened, like all the people with money went out there because it was like it was a Trump thing. It was like when the Trump 55th Street opened, but people went there because the Gucci store was near there, and it was just like when it was like when I saw this stuff in the news, it was like. And my wife was like, "How can you vote for him?" And I was like, "I think he's just acting. He can't be. I've seen this guy, I know him. Like, he did one racist thing he did like, when the Central Park whole thing, but I said to myself, he just reminds me of a chameleon. Like he's going to adapt to whatever room he's in. Like he's going to pretend to be anything. But the answer is, I saw him in the '90s. I saw him in some crazy settings, and he was definitely not. He was one of the brothers. I seen him at Diddy's parties. I seen him in a bunch of different settings, and he is not what the person you see today. And it's like when I'm with my kids, and I'm like, you know, they're looking at me like they can't believe it. I'm like defending it. I'm like, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying like I know as an adult, like sometimes you're gonna make a decision that may be a business decision that you may not be the proudest about. And someday he may come back and be like, "Ha, I fooled everybody." And I think that's really what he's doing because the reality is, it's like he's doing all these poor people things. Like right now, he's currently tanking the economy, and then the interest rate's going to go down. But that's good for a guy like me who's an entrepreneur because I know the interest rates are going to drop. So I missed it during COVID, but I'm not going to miss it this time because I learned that hey, rich people make money when the economy is bad. Everything is you can buy stock lower, you can buy houses lower, you can buy everything, and life's about how cheap you can get money. And so it's when you're a person trying to use other people's money to be in business, it's a lucrative way of thinking. So yeah. That's my theory on it. May God forgive me for for feeling that way about it. But now that I know a lot about the way business works, it's like being a Democrat. Like my mother, my grandmother, for her, they're all Democrats, and it's like they're all broke, and they all like think the same way. Like, hey, let's just get a job and let's do this. They don't have any kind of entrepreneurial spirit. They don't have. They don't. If I say, hey, let's open a restaurant, they automatically go, well, what happens if we lose the money? And it's like it's you have that mentality, like what if? Like I don't think that way. I'm like, okay, this is how it's done. Then I need to try to find my way of spinning it for myself because that's how generational wealth is created. It takes one person who can see between all the bullshit and figure out, okay, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. So I'm watching very closely what Jewish people are buying right now because quietly they're the ones who've always benefited from whenever the economy went bad. They were the ones who bought the apartments in the Bronx. When the Bronx burned down, I found out all those apartments were owned by Jewish people. I found out that the fire, having a building on fire, made you got the insurance money. I found out that the clothing company, they bring it from other countries and they do import export. Nobody's thinking that way. You know who's thinking that way and everybody thinks that he's batshit crazy? Kanye West. Because he understood. He understands that, well, why would I give you 50% of my money when I can go to Japan myself and design the clothes myself? Why would I pay you to make it when I can go to China myself and make it? Why have a middleman when you can go directly to the source if you got the money to do that?
Go to Bangladesh.
Or Bangladesh or India. It's all about import export, and we don't know that, and we're not sharing the information amongst ourselves, amongst Black people. But there needs to be forums like that where we all like-minded people can sit down and go, hey, we don't gotta think like them and be as extreme as them. But hey, you do this, you buy houses. Oh, okay, my man, he does this. Oh, you know what? We ain't buying that glass here. We're gonna go to China and buy the glass and get it shipped over. Oh, we're gonna buy a whole container. He needs this, he needs that, and that's all they do. That's all Jewish people do. So you go to all those stores, electronic stores. You go to you go to like if you want to buy marble, you notice all Russians is doing it. All people from Ukraine. Why? Because they buy and they send it. They buy, they send it. We're the only ones who just only consume. We're not thinking of being the person to create the business. So if you go in any poor neighborhood in America, there's going to be a liquor store that's going to be owned by a Chinese guy. You're gonna go to the Spanish restaurant that's owned by the Dominican guy. You're gonna go to the grocery store that's owned by the Indian guy. You're gonna go like, what business is the black business? What business are we creating? What business are we trying to put ourselves in a situation to help each other? And I don't know. I can talk on and on about that.
I think there's education in chaos, even where you think our morals may not align, or like this person is doing something extreme that you may not agree with. But I think if you listen closely, if you try to give anybody grace, you will see that there's education in it. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the antics that the message get diluted.
Exactly.
And to summarize what you're saying, but
No, you said
Terrence,
you said it in a much cleaner way. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? But
I don't want no problem, Terrence.
now listen, man. I lost one of my best friends over politics. Like the day that Kamala Harris lost, like he hasn't spoken to me since. And he's angry about it. But I'm like,
But that ain't gonna solve nothing. We need to be able to talk.
we need to be able to talk, because I'm like, you're a millionaire, right? And I've sat around you in business meetings and I've seen you try in every way to not pay taxes. I was like, just listen to the wealthy people. They're gonna teach you how to do it. They're talking about it on Instagram now. It's free information. All you gotta do is log on to it. Create a trust, do an LLC, buy houses under a business name, do this, that. The information is there. Like, why are we using it? Why are we mad because the information came from this person? Like, just strip away what he's saying to get you to listen and listen to what he's saying. And there's 2 minutes of information that you can actually use out of that whole, all that crap that he's saying. But there's 2 minutes of information that you can actually use to benefit yourself, to put yourself in a situation to play the real game. And the playing the real game is being a part of the 1%. And so in saying all that, I want to say that ever since I was a little boy, I was born with the 1%. And I actually believe that my whole journey in life is I never went into any situation with just thinking that that's all there is. I was always trying to identify where and how the person who created whatever that is, what is it that they did. Because I knew that's where the real wealth was.
And to be honest, like, you're living proof of entrepreneurship. And I want to get into club life, which you were a major part of, not just as a promoter, but as an owner. You owned Avalon in 2019 and 2020, the old Limelight,
Right.
which a lot of people know it as. You hosted Chris Brown's MTV My Super Sweet 16 in that club. What was that era like for you? What did owning that club and that level of business teach you about the 1%, about business, about all of these wonderful things that it seems like you're very passionate about?
So at the time when the opportunity presented itself, I was the promotional director at Club Exit, and the place had gotten closed down. But while being the promotional director, I got to learn the real business behind the nightclub game. So when they actually closed, I was obsessed with trying to be an owner, because I no longer could ever promote again, because I saw what the actual owners made. And I can never understood like why nobody black owned clubs. But I was like, what gives me the audacity to think that I can own a club? But I started talking around to people and trying to find out what clubs were for sale. I didn't have the money yet, but I was just trying to find out who owned, who was in trouble, who needed a partner. I felt like once I figure out the deal, I could figure out how to find the money. So at the time, one of my really good friends was dating a girl whose father was the owner of Scores strip clubs. And we basically found the opportunity at Avalon, and we pitched it to him, and he loaned us the money to buy it. So we basically bought 50% of it. And, we produced some of the biggest hip hop events New York's ever seen. But, basically the community board refused to renew the liquor license for the club, because we brought in 50 Cent and G Unit and Dipset, and just the worst of the worst. Crunk music, Little John, like, we just, because we were going after the big bucks, so we didn't come in trying to do Kid and Play and all the backpack rap. I was focusing on the street music because I knew that's where the people who had the disposable income, that's the music they listened to. So I didn't want the guy who bought a mixed drink. I wanted the guy who was going to buy the bottle. And they liked street music, so they wanted T.I., they wanted all that kind of stuff. So we basically, when it was time to renew the liquor license, they didn't give it to us because basically in the community board, I never forget this one woman says, she says that he has the keen ability to bring the absolute worst the city has to offer every week into our neighborhood. And I didn't realize that Chelsea was a neighborhood. Because to me, I never looked at it like that. But I thought to myself, I was like, man, I live in a pretty good neighborhood. I can imagine if there was a nightclub that opened on the corner that was bringing a boogie every weekend. And I'm coming out my house and there's kids pissing in my doorway. And, and then I got Cash Cobain throwing up on my car tire. And I would be like, yo, get that, whatever that business is, get that immediately away from my house. Like, I don't want that here. Like, it just, it was a large part of me understanding, okay, if you get a club, you got to make sure there is no neighbors. You got to make sure that there is no people that can complain, because the community board holds a lot of power when it comes time to renew your liquor license. In New York, you have to renew your liquor license every 2 years, and the community board gets to say whether or not they agree with the state to give you the license.
Okay, I want to get into more current, the status quo, but I got to go back to something. And I'm sorry, I got to ask you, man. You said something. You was like, when it was at the Diddy party, all the parties was going on. Oh, we good? Okay. The dog is safe. We don't got no issues. We got dogs. I want nobody think we abusing animals on set. Take us through it, man. There's a lot of misinformation going on, and I don't know if it's positive or negative. I don't know. I can't speak for that era. There's so many people divided about like what these parties really consumed of, what happened at the party, did things happen at night. From your experience being in that world, and like not just being in that world, being one of the major players in that world, like what was that like just for people in general? Like, was what they say Diddy doing was normal? Was the culture different? How do you feel about the stain of people putting hip hop and black parties and type of the promotional events that you do, like with a lot of heat and negativity on it right now?
So the Diddy party coming up was from as early as high school was a place to be. So, he started out with going to City College basketball games. Then it graduated to the nightclub, him as a promoter at Red Zone. And then him starting to work with Andre Harrell and bringing out Jodeci and bringing out Mary J. Blige, to being, the beginning of Bad Boy. Like I used to see Puff all the time out when he was in between deals, when he was trying to find a deal for Big. And to see him at $0, and to see him when he performed at Hip Hop 50 at that same day, he had like got the key to the city. And to see that he had took my advice on a song that that he performed, the song that he performed, that he came out on, like to see the evolution of from where he started to where to Hip Hop 50. The person that hit Cassie, I don't know that person. The person that did all those things to all those people, I don't know that person either. And I've been in the studio with Puff. I've been in nightclubs with Puff. I've been in house parties with Puff. I've been in Puff's house when there was nobody there but me, him, and Webster and Cassie. Like, I've seen him, I've seen Sean Combs and I've seen Diddy. I've seen both those people. I've seen Puff. Like, I saw the constant, rebranding. I don't like, it's like when I heard the things, and it was like I'm still in disbelief that that's the same person. Like like looking at it now to this day, and it's like you say to yourself, like, in my mind, I believed at the time that it was all the liquor companies going after him, because at the time he was preaching, teaching black black wealth, and he was about to try. He was starting to give all that information that he had acquired over the years, and he would and when he, and at the time, if you've been to any events that he was at, he was always talking about us, never them, and this and that, and I was excited about for what he was about to start. The evolution of trying to share the information. Because there's a million me's walking around that's hustlers that just haven't found that hustle yet. Whenever I talk to people, and my daughter would say, "Oh, he's just a drug dealer." I'm like, "Do you know how hard it is to be a drug dealer? Like, it's probably the hardest job in the world. Like, yeah, you go to jail, but the answer is, it's like, I go into pharmacies and it's like they're the biggest drug dealers. Like it's just a business. You got to learn, you got to understand math. You got to understand people management. You got to understand customer service. There's 1,000 things that go along with it. I'm like, if you were to teach some of those kids who grew up in a crack era, who had to sell drugs to survive, if those kids went to Harvard or to Fordham or to some school, and those same hustle traits were put into something, like import export or any other business, I feel like the world will be a lot different because there will be multiple black billionaires. At the time, growing up in New York in the '90s, it was DNY, there was Puff, of course, was the Godfather. Everybody looked at Puff and what they aspired to be, because he showed that, like, you can have $0, come from nothing, and then all of a sudden, like, you are on MTV, you got the hottest rapper, you got the hottest R&B group, you throwing the best parties, and the Hamptons, you're at the All-Star game, you're back, and the bad boy versus, if you're from New York and you grew up in that whole bad boy versus West Coast thing, versus Death Row thing, like, you felt like you were part of it, like, you were bad boy, like, you can't be, even though everybody still loved Tupac, but it was like, if you bad boy, you got to be bad boy, and it was, the Puff, that, like I said, the Puff, that trial, I wish I never heard all that stuff. I was just like, it's really just go show what people do behind their closed doors is a whole nother thing. And what people, decide to do in their personal life is one thing, but business wise, culture wise, like, I don't know if you can take none of those things from him.
Do you think that's the norm though in music? Because like, right, so much of being an artist is a persona, is marketing, is companies and brand deals telling you to present yourself this way, or your song presents you this way, so you should act this way to fit this persona you're trying to do. So, do you think, like, for the majority of artists, since you have been so engulfed in that world, do you think that's like the norm, where like they're this person on TV and in their music, but they have these personal lives that we really don't know about? And for Jay-Z, right? Like, okay, in the '90s he was this person. Do you believe there's more growth? Do you believe that he actually has changed into this person, or do you believe it's a character based on, like, a Donald Trump, or where society is at, that I have to fit this norm, not because it's who I really am, but because it's what society is asking, or what my pockets is demanding right now?
Listen, I think anybody that's in the entertainment industry is an actor. I don't think
Definitely.
nobody that you see, that's who they are. I've been in situations where artists don't want to talk to anybody, but then the camera turns on or they get on stage and they're this completely different person. You're like, that's not the same person that was just backstage petrified to go outside. That's not the same comic who had to take a shit before he went out because he was petrified of the crowd. That's not the guy who threw up just now because he doesn't like people touching him. It's a different day and age. So back in the early '90s, in the early 2000s, people didn't have this access to touch artists, to be up and close to artists. It was like the artist was just this bigger than life thing that you saw, but you never really had access to be close to. But now with the Instagram age, it's like the closer they seem to the artist, the more they seem like they're keeping it real. But just to keep it a whole buck, like, I look at people like Puff, like Russell Simmons, like all of the titans of the game. I feel like the game is missing that right now, right? So it's like you see these artists, right? They come out with a record and then they die like within 15, 20 minutes. Like, it's no longevity for an artist. So me as a nightclub promoter, right? So when I'm at a club, I'm watching a DJ play music, right? And there's this gasp that you hear when a song comes on that everybody wants to see. So as a promoter, I know automatically, okay, I got to book that thing because this is what's going to be the next big thing. So I was always a step ahead because I always watched the crowd. So I knew when the DJs play new music, what was going to be the next big thing. Right now, there is no next big thing because the reality is there's no A&R. So every artist, any kid who just wants to put music up can put music up. So the in between artists that would be that you can make good money with, those artists are all gone because now it's like either you nobody or you're like, something that costs $1 million, your future. Like the guys that are in between, like they don't have really good shelf lives. Like a guy, like I say, for instance, like I want to say Cash Cobain, like in the 90s, he would have did everybody beats. He would have been like what Timbaland did. He would like, okay, I'm gonna make my music, but I'm gonna make your music. But he's trying to make his own music. And it's like, no, bro, in order to have a long life show, if you're a producer, you need to work with everybody. It's going to make your brand bigger. You're going to get exposed to their audience. You're going to do this, you're going to get that. But everyone's their own individual corporation. There's no way, there's no person that's guiding them. So I don't know where music is going to go because at this point, the gatekeepers are not booking concerts. And the answer that Live Nation is giving people is, you want $1 million? How about this? Why don't you do the show? We'll just lay the money out and we'll do a deal with you where you're going to get X amount of dollars, but we're going to get X amount of dollars to produce it. And that's kind of where it is because now the in-between artists, the ones that would do like, the 5,000 seaters, the Radio City music halls of those places, those artists are all gone now. So it's either they're playing a nightclub or they're playing Barclays. But not everybody can sell out Barclays. It's like the game's all jacked up right now, and I feel like it's jacked up because there are no A&Rs. There's nobody directing the next wave of artists what to do. There's nothing that they can. There's no platform that they can all get under and work amongst. Like in New York, like I remember you would hear a song with Wyclef and this one, and they knew how to work the system within the record label to enhance their profile. And right now, they're just not doing that anymore. It's like every man's their own island, and they're just coming and dying and coming and dying.
Talk to me about managing Funk Flex. Flex is a legend in New York. I know you talked about the Hot 97 connection earlier and linked it with your friend Fat Joe and Big Pun and all the wonderful things. How has it been managing Flex? And how did y'all build that trust and that relationship y'all have?
So we don't use the word manage; we use the word partners.
Oh, I like
So
that.
so me and him are partners, and we sit down and we have these great conversations because we both seen people come and go out of the game. And so the thing that we found that we've had in common with each other was that we were really good at reinventing ourselves. And I always looked up to him as the master of he's the ultimate puppet master. Like can he's a master at creating this attention to himself that like just when you think that he's drifting off, he's back and he's with a whole new coat of polish. And he's on. I've never seen nobody like it. Like and I've seen like promoters, I've seen DJs, and it's like he's been there from the very beginning. But I think his secret sauce is my secret sauce. Like we actually live the culture. Like he grew up in the Bronx. He grew up the same time I did. He saw Cold Crush Brothers. He saw the Jams. He knows that feeling of being at the rope. He knows the feeling of carrying 5 flights of crates up the steps. He knows what it was like to carry a 60-pound speaker up 10 flights of stairs because the elevator broke. Like there's certain things that you have, and you just have this natural hunger if you live the culture from the beginning. So for me, it's like, yeah, I did ticket scalping, I did this, and that was my journey. I did all these other things, but it's like it's. I think it's because I was uniquely in the position to basically take the culture to the next level. So like now, so what me and Flex are doing now is we are on this mission to bring hip hop back, right? So we've identified that what's missing is there is no more Russell Simmons, there is no more Dame Dash, there is no more Puff Daddy, there is no more that one guy that the young guys thought was cool that can organize them to work together. That's in the music industry that's called an A&R, but in my world, it's the person he was the person who put the producer with that artist. He knew what pieces needed to fit together in that puzzle to make a song work. And the problem is that the new and up and coming artists, they all think that it's better to just be my own man, when they didn't realize that, like, since the beginning of time, Frank Sinatra did songs with Sammy Davis Jr. because it was cool to be black. Everybody was there for a reason. Like, if you look at Motown, they all lived in one. It started out in a house, and Smokey Robinson would write a song for Marvin Gaye, and this one and that one, and there's always been these collectives, in music that they're just not doing anymore. And like in Def Jam, I can imagine like being a fly in the wall in Def Jam, and Run DMC's walking in, and LL Cool J wants to get on, and it's just imagine like just being the person to put all those pieces together to create what we consider hip hop. Like it just doesn't exist. Like, what if Cash Cobain did a song with Beyonce? What if this one, like, but who's doing that? Who's putting them in that room? Who's doing that? Like, Jay-Z's a billionaire. He's not in the club no more trying to find the next little young hot guy. Like, I look at a guy like A Boogie, like, he has that star power. He has everything there is, but he's missing one thing: his collective. You look at Cardi B. You look at Nicki Minaj. Like, look at man. Can you imagine working with Young Money, and I found this guy Drake. Oh, wait a minute, I got this other person over here, and you just pitting all these people. Oh, I got a girl in Queens. I got like how crazy you got to be to put that together. What was Master P thinking when he said, "Oh, my brother rap," and I never thought they were the greatest rappers, but they surrounded themselves with great rappers and a great producer. So it's just like, you just got to be a hustler and know how to put things together, man. And right now the game is missing that. You turn the radio on, it's the same 7 records. There's no new music. There's no like, where's the new Michael Jackson? Like, Chris Brown's 30-something years old. Like, where in the hell is the new Jackson 5? What happened to New Edition? Oh my God, is there a new In Vogue? Like, no, 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 no. The music is fucking dead. There needs to be a person that understands that, hey, history repeats itself. Look at the movies, look at all media. Everything that you see is a version of it from the past with a new version of it. A new variation of it,
Yeah.
all over again. I just saw a movie the
Lot
other
of
day saying
samples.
the new Lassie's coming out. Lassie, what the fuck they doing? Lassie's back? Like, what they doing? Jurassic Park 29? Like, what the fuck is going on? What kind of dinosaurs? They mixing dinosaurs with Godzilla now, and monkeys with rabbits,
Yeah.
but the answer is, if you got a great fucking story, just keep selling it. Like, if you know the formula is there. Like, how come no one's doing it? We're in New York City. Like, this is like, why is hip hop so dead? Like, why is R&B so dead? Where's the girl singers? Like, I'm like, there can only be one girl singer in the whole game. Like, I remember, like, there was Erykah Badu, there was Jill Scott, there was this one, there was that one. He was like, oh shit, like, you turn the radio on, you didn't hear 2 records because there was so much content. Like, now it's like, and one more time we're gonna play this, like, bro, please, I do not want to hear that record one more time. Like, just, if we can, no more Afro beats, no more, like, niggas don't like that shit. Like, just play some good old fashioned ballads. Like, hey, I like Honey Baby. I'm like right now, Honey Baby reminds me of Keisha Cole. Remember Keisha Cole came when she had the Sean Paul record, this one, that one. He was like, oh shit, and I remember when she was broke in the club trying to sing on the mic. I'm like, yo, get the mic from who's that girl on the mic, But now look, I see Honey Baby. I see the same thing all over again. I'm like, but she's with some guys who get it. I saw the other day she was in a camp with Scott Storch and this one and that one, and that's really what needs to happen. Like you look at like rappers, like, how the fuck did Dipset fall apart? Like, how, like, Joel Santana, I thought he was gonna be fucking bigger than Jay-Z. Jay-Z and them niggas looked at, like, if you was in Harlem or in the early, like, there was nobody cooler than Jim Jones. Like, and he wasn't even a rapper. He was the manager. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, but you look at it, you're like, anybody could do anything. You know what I'm saying? I remember dropping $3,000 off for camera at Jim Jones. Like, and him saying that he could rap. I remember French Montana coming to me with Max B, like, yo, I rap too. I'm like, yeah. Just let me know when we can get Max, and there's always this manager who can rap. But then you're like, oh shit, he really can rap. But it just takes, that hustler and, that hustler spirit. I seen him go from New York to Akon to Atlanta. The next thing you know, he's in Miami, and You know, who got the next producers? Like it starts out with that.
One thing I admire about you is that you're not just talking. Like you actually lived this, right? September 15th, 2023. That was a big day when Hip Hop Forever at Madison Square Garden, celebrating the 50th year anniversary with you and Flux Flex as producers and Mary J. Blige, Wu Tang, all of these people that you brought back to show how powerful hip hop is, how powerful R&B is. What was it like, man? Like walking in the garden that night, knowing you're a producer, knowing it's sold out, and you get to show everybody what you're saying, like that hip hop is here, we're here to stay. This is beautiful. How do we continue this legacy?
So Hip Hop 50, shamelessly, I want to say it came out because I was mad that I saw that Hip Hop 50 was being produced by some white kids. I saw that they were at Yankee Stadium, and I was also mad that Nas was the person because I was like, Nas ain't even from the Bronx, he's from Queens. And then I got more mad when I saw that KRS-One wasn't on it. So me and Flex got to talking, and we was going back and forth. And we was like, "Yo, can you believe they even got Puff on it?" Because we'd always have these talks like, if we had a show, who would we pick? We was like, there was nothing bigger than Mary and Meth. There was nothing bigger than that. Like, how can they not be on it? So we're going back and forth, and I'm like, "Yo, I'm gonna call the office of Live Nation, and I'm gonna figure out who's the head up there, who the head person is." So I called Madison Square Garden, and Darren Pfeffer, who does Jingle Ball and who also used to be the head of marketing at Power 105, he connected me to the president of Madison Square Garden, and he was telling me that, hey, MSG has their own marketing company, and they're always looking for content. And I was like, really? And I goes, how does that work? And he walked me through the whole process. I was like, that's all you got to do? And he was like, yeah. He said, I'm putting the money out for Jingle Ball. They lay out all the money. And I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. So how does this work? So I called up Madison Square Garden. I'm pitching in the show. And he was like, this sounds like a great situation, but we think that if we can get Live Nation on board, this will be something that we would definitely 100% do. So at the time, Live Nation was doing their own show at Madison Square Garden. And she was like, this sounds like a great idea and this and that, but, they said that they offered you to help promote Yankee Stadium, but you passed on it. And I'm like, why would I pass on Yankee Stadium? Why would I help Yankee Stadium when I don't even believe in that show? And she goes, why don't you believe it? And I'm like, well, because this person's not on it. This person's not on it. How can you not have Everybody and Rakim on it? How can there was like a whole bunch of artists that, because I am hip hop, why ain't they on it? So she was like, there's nothing I can do to get you to help this show, because at the time they were struggling with the ticket sales. And she couldn't figure out why the tickets weren't selling. I knew why they weren't selling, because I have this talent with ticket scalping. And I'm like, people in the Bronx didn't spend $100 for no ticket. They just ain't, unless Jay-Z's on it and people coming from everywhere else. But if you're expecting people from Cortlandt Avenue, Washington Avenue, Gun Hill Road, Parkchester, they are not spending $100 to see anybody. They will stand outside the Yankee Stadium and listen to the music and turn the Yankee Stadium into the parking lot that they do at Summer Jam, which they did. I knew they were going to do that. But she was like, well, how much the ticket should be? I said, if it was my concert, I would do something like a 2-for-1 ticket, because you can't lower the ticket price because people paying $100 already for the tickets. But I would do a winning weekend where the tickets were 2-for-1, basically. So they did that one weekend. They sold 20,000 tickets. Now she's listening to every word I say, because now she understands that I understand this game on a whole nother level. So she was like, who can you get? And I was like, we already got Wu Tang and we have Mary J. Blige. She was like, how do you get Mary J. Blige? We can't get Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige at the time was signed to another promotional company called Black Promoter Collective. And we're like, well, I know that every single artist who have Live Nation deal, AEG deal, or Black Promoter Collective, they have things in their contract that if it's a radio sanctioned event, that they have to do the concert. So I'm going to use that loophole for every single artist. And she was like, oh my God. Who else can you get? And I was like, well, we spoke to a few other people. Well, we think that we want to go with Sean Paul. We went to go with EPMD, Wu-Tang, Mary J. Blige, and Maxwell. She's like, why Maxwell? I was like, because Maxwell's hip hop. And so she was like, oh, okay. So she was like, oh, this is gonna be like a color. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be the best of the 2000s and in the late 90s. So we're going back and forth, back and forth. So I get a real phone call in the middle of the night one night, and it's Mariah Carey's manager. And she heard the concert and the marketing for it, and she was like, well, I want to bring out Wu-Tang. And then I was like, I thought it was somebody joking around, da da da, making playing around. So she asked me for Flex's phone number. So I called Flex up, and I'm like, yo, somebody calling, playing on my phone, saying they work with Mariah Carey, and she wants to talk to you. Can I give you a phone number? And he goes, nah, tell her to check her DM right now. So it was us. So he DM'd her. They exchanged phone numbers, and more or less, she said that she was going to bring him out. So she was like, so pretty much people who were just bringing people out or just that weren't part of the main ticketing, we was like, well, we'll give you X amount of dollars for travel, to get to the show. So at the time, like a month before the show, it was announced that Puff was getting the key to the city in New York. And so Flex, I was like, Flex, I was like, Puff is going to be in New York the week of our concert. I said, yo, it'd be so crazy if Puff came out. He goes, nah, he will never do it. He's about his money. He ain't gonna do it. I was like, I said, let's just ask him. Let's just ask him. So he asked him, and of course, on Puff's, the way he does things, he goes, talk to my manager, which basically means that he wants to get paid. But the show's sold out already, so we don't need him to sell tickets or nothing. We're like, we're doing it just to bring you out as a surprise. So a week before, we decided that we were going to ask Mary J. Blige because he said he'll come out on Mary's set. So Mary's going through her set time, and Madison Square Garden is like saying that if y'all go over, it's going to be $20,000 every 10 minutes. So Live Nation's panicking because now this show is now seeming longer than it's a lot of time. So we're going back and forth. And Mary J. Blige at this point is like saying to herself, like, yo, this nigga's eating into my time. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to bring this one out. I want to bring A Boogie out. I want to do this and that. So she had her own show. So I think 3 or 4 days before the show, Mariah Carey calls and she needs X amount of dollars for a private jet to come to New York. Live Nation's like, see, we knew she was going to pull something like this, da da da. We told you guys not to this and that. I was like, well, we didn't market her. She's not on the ticket, so we could very easily stop saying her name in the promotion. I said, we can go back and forth. And then she was like, well, she's a big name. How are we going to replace that big name? How are we going to replace that big name? And I was like, what do you think about Puff? And she goes, he's $1 million. He'll never do it. I was like, no, he was a part of Mary's show, but Mary don't want him a part of her show anymore. I haven't told him that yet, but I'm going to call his manager and tell him that, hey, I got 20 minutes for you to do your own slot. So we call the manager. They're with it. They're like, oh, absolutely, blah, blah, blah. I can do this. I can do that. And so we're going back and forth, back and forth. So I think a day before, we're going back and forth. And, he's now thinking that he didn't want to do it because he's like, he don't want to compete because now he's hearing everybody's set list. Because the production, people are saying that, oh, Wu-Tang's bringing out this one, this one's coming out, and Nas is coming on this one. Like, so he's like, oh, I don't, who am I going to bring out? I was like, bro, you come out and you sing Victory with no music behind it as a surprise guest. I said, the garden's going to just completely erupt. And they're like, nah, we don't know if that's the right record. I'm like, nigga, I live the era. I am a bad boy head. I am telling you, that song Victory he's like, no, the big record. I'm like, the big record was nice, but Victory was your fucking, like, the sun don't shine forever. So he's like, I don't know, I'm gonna think about it. So he pulled up, he's getting out, I see him backstage, we laugh and joke, and I said, King stay king. He go, why you say that? I was like, because, you're still the king of New York. This is all before the whole casket thing and everything, by the way. That day was a big day for me. He just got the key to the city. He's running around Good Morning America, this and that, and da-da-da. He's talking about, now he's headlining the show at Madison Square Garden now, So he's telling everybody who listen that, that he's going to rip the show or whatever. So he went up there, he performed, and in Diddy's fashion, he definitely was one of the most memorable performers. But for me personally, It started out when we did the first walkthrough after we sold out, and I pulled, I pulled myself to the side because the tear rolled down the side of my face, and I couldn't tell nobody why I felt that way. But it was like I started out as a little kid, 14 years old, outside of this building selling Nick tickets and Ranger tickets, and now I'm, the producer of the biggest show. Because now, people now talking about the Yankee Stadium show was the wackest show ever. Like now everyone's talking about they want to get in. I got Eric B. and Rakim. I got this one. I got so many people who feel like they got shunned from the Yankee Stadium show are now calling my phone to try to get in on the show. But of course, Live Nation saying no to everybody because they're just worried about the time. But it was a full circle moment for me because I'm like, damn, big fish. The kid packing bags, the kid standing outside the jam, the kid carrying crates up the steps, the kid, you know, surviving Webster Avenue, Washington Avenue, Third Avenue, Fordham Road. Like you got to be a real Bronxite to understand. Like in those days, it was fucking hell. Like one minute you walk in the street, somebody has a television, somebody got a barbecue fork. Like you could find somebody selling a fork to a television. Like the Bronx was fucking like you see New Jack City. Like that was every fucking day. Like it was literally in my projects. It was 3 projects next to each other. It was literally, I want to say 10,000 crackheads. It was the craziest thing you could ever imagine. But this little kid who overcame all that shit is now producing Hip Hop 50. And so not only did I produce Hip Hop 50, I sold motherfucking Madison Square Garden out. And I told Live Nation, who's the biggest fucking, marketing people, what the tickets should cost. Why this one should be priced that? Why this one should be priced this? How come this is that? And no one ever asked, how do you know all this information? I know this information because I'm the biggest fucking ticket scalper in America. That's how I know it. Okay? That's how I know it. And so, now they're gonna know. Now I never told them, but now they're gonna know why. That was my secret sauce. I understood the ticketing, and I understood what people would pay. I understood the actual consumer. And the unfortunate part is if you go to the high levels of Live Nation, most of these companies, it's analytics, or there's some white woman or some white guy telling people what things should and shouldn't cost, and they're not even from the culture. They've never fucking they don't know what it's like to stand in the rain listening to a break beat. They don't know like the things that just watching a train go by and watching going to the movie and watching Beat Street 10 times in a row. They don't know what it's like going to the Dover movie theater to go see Break In. They don't know what it's like to see Beat Street on like my whole life, like on in real life. Like if you were a kid from the Bronx and you grew up in that era, and I can't explain to you what it was like to see Beach Street. It was like, holy fuck, my life's on television. They don't know what it's like when fucking Scarface came out and it influenced all these fucking kids who didn't have a mother to go sell fucking drugs because now everybody wants to be Scarface. They don't know how we were so influenced by fucking pop culture and it fucking, I don't know. I can go on and on
Nah,
and on, man.
I had two last questions.
I can go on and on and on and on and on.
I had two last questions. One of them I'm not going to even ask because it was basically, I know you're writing autobiography and you're putting all of these moments, but I think the entire interview tells us why you need to write an autobiography.
Right.
And I think it's much bigger than you. The passion you just spoke with over the last hour just shows like there's so much things that we need to know, that we need to understand. It ain't about your fancy degrees. It ain't about your computer systems. It's about being outside, being in the culture, and these memories that a lot of people don't have because they didn't live the experiences that you lived. That a lot of us young ones that come from the Bronx can actually open a book and read and say, "Wow, this is where we come from. This is our legacy, and we bigger than what's going on in the community right now." So thank you for that. And once the book is done, I don't know. Do you have a title yet?
Yes.
Tell us the title.
It's called Party and Bullshit. And it's a love and hip hop story. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like the
man.
real love in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like it's my love of hip hop and how I fell in love with it at a young age, and how God has been guiding me since maybe 11 years old to this life. And it's like, you know I'm 55 now, and I have other businesses that I'm extremely successful in. And my wife's always like, how come you can't let it go? And it's like, I can't let it go is because it's who I am. It's like asking the basketball players why he still watch basketball. It's like asking a football player why they still go to the game. Like this is the game is me. It's how I breathe. It's who the fuck I am from top to bottom. Like I can't understand why I was always put in those positions to get from one ladder to the next ladder to the next ladder to the next ladder to the next ladder. I never knew it, but now I know it because I think my mission was to be the person to recreate the next Def Jam. Like I know how it's done. I know what needs to be done. Ask me the question. You can ask 1,000 guys the question. All they're missing is the financing. Oh, I got the financing. So guess what? I don't need to take a loan for $300,000 to get a record deal when I could just build a studio and have a bunch of artists and have them work together. But the unfortunate part is they have to leave the ego and understand the history of what they're doing. Just like, I'm sure Marvin Gaye and those guys understood the history of what the people before them did and the people before them did. Because you're not recreating the English language, you're not recreating new words. You're just, these are just extremely intelligent people who are able to write songs and put it over music. But there's always a new generation who has heartbreak. There's always that guy who had the first heartbreak. There's always that girl who hates her husband. There's always, as you get older, the hurt just hurts more. It hurts a little less when in a month from now. And the song that made you feel better about yourself, and knowing that music controls your emotion and it can make you feel like you want to kill yourself, but it also can make you feel like you want to run through a wall. So the one song to one person can make you want to pop bottles, but to somebody else it makes you want to fight the club. So it's just you know it's like I said, it's my version of why I love not only I love the culture. I am the culture.
I can't wait to read it, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Big Fish. Clap it up.